Now, as you guys know, since you've done a lot of problems, those aren't the only ways to strengthen or weaken this kind of argument. Here are a couple other ways, and this is not exhaustive, right? But these are some other common ways. I think of them as, first, providing circumstantial evidence. And I don't know the best way to call this because circumstantial may not, have the same meaning to you as it does to me. But when I think of circumstantial, I just mean, Dai is saying it's like independent. It's like it's almost like a piece of corroborating evidence that doesn't relate directly to the correlation you're talking about, but it does make the explanation more or less likely. And a really good example of this, I forgot the problem. Actually, let me just twist it a little bit because I don't want to spoil it. But imagine someone wanted to make the argument that wearing masks reduces the likelihood of getting COVID, right? So let's say there's a correlation between wearing masks and a lower rate of getting COVID. And someone wanted to say, oh, it's because of the masks that they're not getting COVID. Well, one way to help the argument would be to show that some other kind of virus or illness that is spread through the air went down at the same time as people wore masks, right? And so if you're not thinking too deeply, you might think, well, what do we care about some other illness, right? What do we care about the flu? But the way it's working is it's basically showing that something that you would expect to be true if masks really worked is actually the case, right? If masks really were preventing some airborne disease like COVID, then it would make sense to think it would also prevent other airborne illnesses too. And so if you can show that that is the case, it does help to make the underlying theory a little bit more plausible, all right? So that's something it doesn't come around too often, right? But it is good to be aware of. And then another thing to be aware of is this idea of providing a causal mechanism, all right? That's a way to strengthen the argument. So if I wanted to say, exercising, and I'll be more specific. What about running on a treadmill every morning is associated with earning a higher income? And then I want to make the argument. So therefore, there must be something about running on a treadmill in the morning that actually causes you or helps you earn more at your job, right? Well, one way to help the argument would be to say something like, when you exercise in the morning, you are more alert, which allows you to do a better job at work, right? Something like that. Running in the morning, what does it do? It makes you awake at a time when the most important business tasks are done, right? So I'm just proposing potential ways that running on a treadmill in the morning might help you earn more by like making you better at your job. That would help the argument by providing a theory as to how the cause could produce the effect. But the reason I say it's strengthened only is because you're not going to weaken the argument by showing that one particular causal mechanism is not the case, right? So if I wanted to make the argument that running on the treadmill in the morning helps you earn more or increases your income, it's not going to hurt to say running in the morning doesn't make you better at your job, or it doesn't, make you more alert in the morning when you're working. Because even if it doesn't do that, there could be any number of ways that it would help increase your income. And the argument wasn't really saying that there was one specific way that it was working. So does that make sense? It's an issue that doesn't come up that often. So it's okay not to have some, memory of it, but it can be important to note. And also, by the way, you're not going to weaken the argument with an answer that says, we are unaware of how running on a treadmill, like scientists are not aware of how running on a treadmill can lead to increased income. Because the issue is, even if we don't know how it works, we still have this correlation, and the correlation does still provide some evidence of the cause. So that's why pointing out, well, we don't know how it works, doesn't really hurt the logic of the argument, because the argument wasn't even suggesting that we knew how it worked, right? So that's why providing a causal mechanism helps make the theory more plausible, but the lack of a specific causal mechanism doesn't hurt the argument.